welcome to Travelpayouts Affiliate Summit Day 2. If you have just joined us, Travelpayouts Affiliate Summit is the first online travel affiliate conference. The summit will last for 5 days, so we have 3 days of expert workshops ahead. Remember to find the link to your Google Calendar in your emails, join all live sessions you find interesting, and of course, ask your questions and leave your comments. My name is Olga Gachkova, if you don't know me yet. I'm a marketing manager at Travelpayouts, one of the largest travel affiliate networks in the world, and I'm going to moderate the stream. So there is a great opportunity for those who want to network with other travel affiliate marketers during and especially after the summit. In the comments here on YouTube, you can find the link to the Travel Affiliate Club on Facebook. You should definitely join this group. It's an open and quickly growing community of all those who are developing their travel affiliate businesses right now. And it's a perfect place to look for advice, to share your expertise, to ask feedback. Back to the summit today, there are two simultaneous streams, A and B. This is stream A. There are two workshops in each of them. So stream B will start with a workshop by Chris Christensen. Probably you already know him. This is the guru of travel podcasting, and he will teach you how to create your own travel podcast. And you can find the link to this workshop in the comments as well. So I think we're ready to start our stream A, and I'm delighted to introduce you our first speaker. It's Megan McMullin, an outreach lead at MeetEdgar. She will share the 5 secrets to social success. The workshop will take around 45 minutes, and then we'll answer all of your questions. So I encourage you to be active and start asking about all things social. Welcome, Megan.
Hi, thank you so much for that great introduction, Olga. And hello, everyone. I'm so excited to speak to you today about the 5 secrets to social success. So I work for a company called MeetEdgar, and we are a social media automation tool. And the really awesome thing about working for this company, being an outreach lead, is that I get to really get in and talk to all of our members about setting themselves up to be social media experts in any field. So we're going to talk a lot about the steps that are simple to achieve for you, but we all know that simple doesn't always mean easy. So as we're going throughout these, think though how you can adapt these to your own social media strategy and make sure that social media isn't just falling to the wayside and becoming something that you do when you just have time. Because truly, social media is one of the best places for you to reach your followers directly. There is no gatekeeper to the content you're putting out there or the story that you're telling about your brand. Social media is amazing for branding online because when it comes down to it, you're essentially telling the story about how you want people to feel about the product or service you have, how you want your community to act, and what you want them to do with your product or service is completely in your control. So oftentimes when people get frustrated with social media, I like to remind people that if you don't know what to post, you're thinking about it too hard sometimes because social media is just having a conversation with your followers. Remember, your followers are following you for a reason. They want to know about you. They want to know about your expertise, and they want to feel like there's a human behind the content that they're consuming. Now, when I say there's a human behind the content that they're consuming, this goes back to the fact we want to keep social in social media. We want to make sure that people are really excited to talk to other people online and make sure that you're creating a community who feels free to do that. So the counterintuitive fact with all of this is I'm going to talk about these systems for social success. And I work for a social media automation tool. And sometimes when you hear the word systems and when you hear the word automation, you're going to tune out a little bit and say, Megan, if I'm systemizing my social media, and if I am going in there and I am making all of these different content items in an automation that is just going to send them out, that makes me seem less human now, doesn't it? And I'm going to tell you that is actually the counterintuitive fact about social media marketing, because the more systemized that you can make it and the easier that you can make it on yourself for that content to be distributed out to each network, the more human you're going to seem because you show up consistently with social media posts that are reaching your followers because you've had intention behind them. So you want to make sure that you're thinking about these systems in social media in a way that it makes your followers feel like every single status update was written just for them. So when you sit down and you start to implement these steps that I'm going to share with you, always remember the golden rule is sitting down and feeling like you're talking to one person. Conversational copywriting is the key to social media. We learn so much in school that you have to do things like write really perfectly with these really eloquent words and use proper everything. But on social media, sometimes that can actually be your worst enemy. You want to make it feel like you're texting a friend or you're just reaching out in an email to one of your family members. That is why most people are on social media, to connect with friends and family. So you want your copy and you want the story you're telling to feel to your followers like they're seeing content from their friends. So as we're talking about these systems, you want to make sure you're really thinking about the ways that you can adapt this to your brand's voice. So sitting down and thinking about the feelings that you want to give your followers when they read your content. Everyone's brand is going to have a different answer to that. So don't think there's just one right answer. For example, here at MeetEdgar, we like to come across as a very inspirational brand, sometimes a bit cheeky and jokey and sarcastic, but always positioning ourselves as the go-to brand for social media knowledge and inspiration in your niche. What is that for your brand? Think about that and really make sure as you're writing every single status update you're sending out to your followers that it really shows your brand voice and consistency so that when they see one status update from you and then they see the next one, they can tell it's your voice. They recognize you right away and they're excited to see that content in your feed. So let's dive right in to these steps. So step number 1 is to categorize your social media. This is super simple. And as well as I was saying before, it's going to be different for everyone when you're developing your categories. So these categories on the screen here are just some general categories that we know work well for telling a story on social media. But you want to make sure the way you're thinking about categories are there buckets of posts, so different types of posts that you're going to rotate throughout the day and throughout the week. This does a few things. First, it really makes sure that your social media feed doesn't become a place where you just start sounding like a used car salesman and you're just shouting promotions at people all the time. No offense to used car salesmen, but that's not how I want to spend my time when I'm just relaxing on social media. I don't want to be sold to. So if you're not rotating through different categories, it's likely that you're going to get the wrong ratio of posts and your feed might become a place where people are like, oh, not this brand again. They're just trying to sell something to me. If you haven't laid the groundwork of building a relationship, having rapport with your followers, and really making sure you're educating and entertaining people with valuable posts, your sales posts are not going to hit well. Another way of looking at this is if you do the groundwork of really building a relationship with your followers through your social media posts, then your sales posts that go out can be shorter. They can be sweeter. You don't have to spend as long on the pitch because you've done the groundwork of building that relationship. It goes back to this term that you've probably heard a lot in social media is know, like, and trust. That is the goal, that you want to get people to know you, like you, and trust you. That's kind of overplayed these days, but the backbone of what it's trying to convey is still true. If people don't know who you are, they can't buy from you. People have a ton of different choices in every industry these days. You can purchase from Coke or Pepsi. Everybody's got that competitor that people get to choose from, right? So you need to make sure that they like you more than they like your competitors. And that goes back to the human aspect of it. So these categories will help share your personality and will help share these other tips and tricks that will really humanize your brand. And then trust. People do not hand over money to people they don't trust. So if you're trying to sell something to someone on social media and they don't trust who you are because you haven't laid that relational groundwork, your sales posts are not going to land. I like to think about this a little bit as if you were on a date as well. If you went out on a date, you would not ask the person to marry you right away on the first date. That's not going to go over well, and you're probably not going to get a yes. But if you spend a few dates courting them, getting to know them, talking to them, really letting themselves see who you are, and then you ask them to marry you, it's much more likely they'll say yes. I know it's a weird comparison, but it makes sense when you think about it this way for social media. Asking someone to marry you is the exact same thing as asking someone to buy from you in this example. So you need to make sure you're rotating through these categories. So, how-to content works really well for not only showing how to do something with your product or service, but also other things that go on throughout your day. So how-to content can be something like how to have a really productive morning, my morning routine for getting my kids out the door and being on time at work or something like that. This sort of how-to content is excellent because people really are on social media to learn something. They want to be educated. They want to gain some value. And if you can teach someone something and you can get them a result, so if they take action on your how-to tips and they get a positive result from it, it's much more likely in the future that they purchase from your product or service when you sell to them because you've already gotten them a result. So if you can get someone the outcome that they want, let's take, for example, if you know that your followers, your community is made up of people who are really, really busy in the morning, and you give them tips how to make their morning more successful, and they're more successful in that way, they're going to trust you because you've given them an outcome that they want. So make sure you're writing down what challenges your followers have throughout the day and how these how-to content and categories can support the challenges that they have. Other really good categories to think about are questions. A lot of time we think, you know what, I want more engagement on my social media, but we look at our feeds and we're not inviting that engagement with questions. Now, these questions don't have to be hard hitting all the time. They can be simple questions that you're putting out there to your followers, and people will be really excited to answer things like, what's your favorite book? Or a really funny icebreaker question, like, if you were a condiment on a hamburger, which one would you be? These questions don't have a lot to do with your brand, but they train people to actually know you want engagement on your posts. A really good one that I like to really recommend to people is saying, how is your day going? Share it in a GIF. People love to show off their GIF game and share GIFs online, and it gets your community to be reminded that you like them to talk to their posts. That way, when a really great question about your brand might come up, people are more likely to stop and engage with it in the future. So create these categories that invite engagement in. Quotes is a really good category because everyone loves to be inspired on social media. It is some of the most shared content, and it doesn't have to be overthought either. You can go out there and Google quotes that have to do with anything in your industry, copy and paste them onto a graphic in Canva, and upload them onto social media or into a social media automation tool like MeetEdgar to go out. Quotes are really excellent at what we call word of mouth marketing on social media because so often if we get a great quote that resonates with our followers and they share it to their page, that is essentially sharing your brand's logo to their audience as well. So again, these inspirational quotes might not have anything to do with selling your product or service, but you can bet they do a really good job about raising brand awareness. Now, every piece of content you put on social media has one job to do. That quote does not have to have the job to sell. That quote's job is to get people to share it, to get people to interact with it, and to give your followers a really good feeling when they read it. So don't get stressed out if you feel like all of these categories aren't leading to selling, because remember, the relationship building part is part of the selling. Other really good ones, of course, social media needs to be a place where you are directing people to your website content. So your blog content, your podcast content, anything that it is. You want to remember you do not build your business on social media. You use social media to direct people to where your business is online. Social media can change its algorithms at any time. Any network can decide just to disappear. And if you're building everything right on social media, you're kind of building your business on rented space. So social media needs to be the hub that you're distributing your content for people to engage with, but you need to remind people where to find you online. So your blog, your website, stuff like that. Behind the scenes content, you need to tell your origin story. When you first meet someone in real life, what's one of the first questions you ask them? It's typically something like, where are you from? This is a really good question to ask about your brand as well. You want to take these real life situations and bring them online for social media. So if you know that people want to have that origin story, you want to make sure that you're giving them that origin story with how you started, why you started your brand, what your brand's values are. This also goes back to the fact that people have a million different choices when it comes to purchasing products online, that if you're not giving people your values, and if your values aren't aligning with them, it's most likely they're not going to purchase from you, because as much as we like to think as humans that we purchase on logic, we purchase on emotions so much more. So if you're sharing your company values and someone aligns with their personal values with that, it's likely you'll create a really good bond. So make sure you're pulling back the curtain on your business and sharing your values and sharing your origin story about why you started. Tips, this is really great for repurposing your content. So getting some really great tips that you're writing in your blogs, sharing in videos, or speaking on your podcasts, and put them as text-only tips. You want to also make sure you're always curating content. So going out there and getting other articles from your industry, not from your direct competitors, but that you might not be an expert in. Remember, to be a really good expert, you can't know everything. And the more niche you can be and the more focused you can be with your content, the better. So sometimes you might know your followers are craving to be educated about a certain subject that you're not an expert in. But if you can go out there and find a blog post from someone else who is an expert in it, it's a great thing to share on social media to show your followers that you care about giving them the best information, no matter where it came from. And it's a great relationship building tactic on social media. You want to make sure that you're sharing other people's content. Seasonal content, you always want to make sure you're sharing stuff that's going to resonate with what's going on in people's lives. Promotional content, you got to go ahead and get your promotions out there. And then list building content, you want to make sure you have things called lead magnets that really get people to sign up for your newsletter. Again, because we want to make sure the most content we're putting out on social media is valuable content, so educational or entertaining. And then if we're collecting people's emails through like a PDF download or something, you can then start to sell in your emails much better than you can on social media. So again, these categories are going to be different for everyone, but go ahead and start categorizing your social media content. Because once you have your categories, we go on to step 2. And this is going to be batching your social media content. So why batching is so important is because it means you only have to create social media status updates 12 times a year. So what batching is it's grouping like tasks together and doing it all at once. This makes sure you're not wasting time multitasking or switching from task to task, because that really wastes a ton of time and you don't get into a really good flow state of working. So with social media, you want to pick one day a month to write all of your social content. This not only makes sure you have a consistent voice on social media so that your brand is recognizable, but it saves you a ton of time. So I want you to go ahead and customize the numbers on here for your brand and what works for your batching strategy. But this is an example of how it would work. If, let's say, you'd like to send out 6 status updates a day, 5 days a week, so every weekday you want to send out 6 status updates, that would be to get a month's worth of fresh content. That's going to be 120 status updates a month. So that means you're going to have to create 120 status updates a month. Holy cow, that sounds like a lot, right? But the trick with categories is if we break this down into categories, that's you only having to create 20 status updates per category per month. And that sounds way more doable, right? So one day a month, you'll sit down, block out your day as content creator day, and write 20 status updates to go in your blog posts, 20 to go in your tips, 20 to go in your behind the scenes content. And again, that means you're only creating status updates 12 times a year if you're doing it once a month, which makes sure you don't feel burnt out about social media. And it makes sure you're really focused on getting a good brand voice that speaks directly into your followers' problems and gives them the solutions that they're seeking. So once you've done your batching, the next step here, number 3, is going to set a distribution schedule. So we have our social media categories. We're creating our content in each of those categories. And next, we need to make sure that content gets out into the world. So the way that these categories play into the distribution set is going to be making sure that 80% of your content is valuable content. 20% can be a little bit more promotional. Now, one of the things about promotional content and selling on social media that I'd really like you to understand is selling can sometimes be helpful content, and we need to look at it that way in our minds. The mindset shift you need to take to make sure you're really good at selling on social is that your social media promotional posts are actually helpful to your community. Because if you've done the work of identifying your community's main pain points, so you've sat down and had conversations with your followers about their biggest challenges in life or their biggest problems or what their hopes and dreams are, then you know how to write content that's going to hit their hearts in a way that your product or service is going to help them achieve those dreams or avoid that pain point. So your promotional content, when you're selling them a product or service that can help get them closer to their desired outcome that they want, those are sales posts because you're selling to them, but they're also helpful posts. So as you're starting to think about how often you're going to distribute your content, and I'm talking about how 80% needs to be helpful and 20% can be promotional, I want you to also keep in mind when you're writing your promotional posts that they are helpful. You need to tell people that a product or service exists in order for them to actually take action and really get the benefits from that product or service. So that's just a really good sales tip to take when you're sitting down and writing your promotional posts during your batching days, is to remember they are also helpful. A good way of actually getting that 20% to land a lot more effectively with your audience is going to be to do things like show social proof. So go out there and tell people who's had success with your product or service in the past. If you don't have a lot of clients or you don't have a lot of people purchasing from you yet, tell your own story about how your product or service has helped you in your life. Because people don't want to be the first one to go, right? They don't want to be the first one to try a product or service. They want to see that it's worked before. So your promotional post shouldn't always just be, hey, buy from me. They should really encompass some sort of social proof showing that you can get people the outcome that they want. Other really good things to do in that 20% promotional posting is to make sure that you're really hitting home on the pain that they're going to avoid in the future if they take action now. So why this is important is because when it comes down to actually purchasing from someone, whether it's on social media or whether it's in the real world, us as humans, we need two things. We need a sense of urgency and we need scarcity. For some reasons, our brains really don't like making decisions. So if you can help people make a decision to purchase from you, or on the flip side, if you can help people decide they don't need your product or service, that's a really valuable promotional post. So think about the language you can use. Think about the things you can add into your promotional posts to make sure that they are coming across in a way that's helping people opt in to purchasing from you, or saying, nope, you know what, I don't need this product or service. Either way, you've done your job because you don't want someone to purchase from you if they don't need your product or service. So think about the fact if someone does not purchase from you today, what is their life going to be like 6 months from now? How much more stress are they going to have? For example, for a social media automation tool like us, we could play out the scenario that you're still going to be going out there babysitting your social media, feeling like you have no time for it. Whereas if you bought our product and you actually used the MeetEdgar software, you would have a systemized approach and you would feel like social media was a thing that you enjoyed and was manageable. So what is that for your business? Play it out 6 months from now, the feelings that people are going to have if they don't purchase, and try to really get that into your promotional posts. So as you're distributing your content, 80% of it is going to be that valuable category. So how-to content, really helpful tips, inspirational, funny posts, memes, stuff like that. 20% is going to be a little more promotional, where you're leading people to have a sense of urgency to purchase from you, whether it's offering a social media specific discount code, or whether it's getting out there and saying that something is not going to be available. Those things are a sense of urgency, but also remember you can create that with this sense of, if you don't do this right now, in 6 months from now, you're going to not have the outcome of the life you want. So 80% of your content, valuable content, 20% promotional. This breaks down, if you're sharing 4 posts a day, make sure 3 of them come from valuable categories. 1 of them can be a little more promotional. That's a good way of thinking about it. This also works really well because there's this thing that's called touch points with a brand. And every time someone sees your brand name, that's a touch point, whatever it is. And it's truly said that it takes about 7 to 14 touch points for people to remember and be loyal to a brand. So if every single touch point that you're putting out there with your followers is a sales post, it's not going to give them the feeling that they trust you as much as if those 7 to 10 touch points of just seeing your brand and getting the feelings that you want people to get from it are really valuable content. So remember, this comes down to the fact that you see everything you post on social media, but your followers do not. So make sure that you're getting the majority of valuable content out there. And a really good kind of rule of thumb or trick with this is if you have a good promotional post coming up, the post you post right before that, make sure that post is an engagement-oriented post so that you're asking a question or putting something funny that you know people are going to like, or doing that GIF idea that I had of asking a question for people to share their GIF. The reason you want this to happen is because how the algorithm works on social media is if they're seeing people are liking a post, commenting on a post, they're going to be more likely to get the message that, hey, people within this community like seeing content from this page. Let's go ahead and open their content up to more of their followers. So if you get a lot of engagement on one post and then your very next post is a promotional one, the algorithm's going to remember that people like seeing content from you in their feeds, and they're going to put that in more of your followers' feeds. Remember, the algorithms are existing because they want to give people content that really excites them. So if you're not getting a lot of engagement, work on your engagement first before you start promoting, and your promotional posts will get a lot better of a reach. All right, so next, you want to make sure you always have what we call an evergreen strategy. And that is, you want to make sure you're writing things once and promoting them multiple times. You're working smarter, not harder on social media. So evergreen makes sure that you're sharing things that are really going to get across no matter what time of year it is, it's going to resonate with people. So it's not something that you're putting a specific date or a specific time of year, because this really goes back to the fact, again, that you see everything you post, but your followers do not. And you want to make sure that you remember you're always gaining new followers. So if you're writing really quality content, you want to share it multiple times. This is a really hard thing for a lot of people to get their head around sometimes, but I promise you, if you've never tried this strategy before, you're not going to get people complaining that you're posting the same thing too much. Most people aren't going to see every single status update. And if they do, remind yourself, if you're watching a commercial on TV and if you see it twice, you're not getting mad about it if it's a good commercial. That's why oftentimes on TV, commercials are made to be funny or entertaining, because if you see it a couple times and it's a quality commercial, you're not mad. Same with your social media status updates. If you're sharing a blog post a couple of times, but it's a really quality status update, people are not going to be mad about it. And you want to use social media to continue to drive traffic to your older posts. So if you do social media in an evergreen fashion, your followers are going to be able to see that content, that blog post, multiple times throughout the year. The reason that this is important is because not all of your followers are ready to buy right away. Sometimes it takes a little bit more nurturing to move people through what we call a marketing funnel. So what a marketing funnel is at the top comes your brand awareness phase. You're getting people aware that your product or service exists. Then you're moving people down the funnel to get them to consider purchasing from you. So they're weighing their options, whether your product or service is going to solve their pain point, whether they should purchase from someone else or not. Then you're moving people down to the decision phase, whether they're actually going to buy or not. And sometimes each piece of content can help move people through this. But let's say you put a sales piece of content out there and it hits someone when they were in the brand awareness phase and they're not ready to buy from you yet. But if you reshared that piece of content a couple of months later, perhaps they're in a better space where they feel like they can afford to purchase, or their pain point has grown strong enough that they need your product or service to help solve it. That's going to really lead them to be able to take action on that post. And if you hadn't reshared it, they might not have taken action on it. So make sure you're really doing that. And if you're afraid to share the exact same thing, you can make variations on your content. So change the wording, because we never know what's going to resonate with someone. So make sure you're varying the language you're using and A/B testing what words are compelling people to click through on your links or to like your posts, to use that and feed it back into your other social updates. So we're always looking at social media in an experimental mindset. You always want to make sure that you're sharing on a schedule, so rotating through your categories. You also, again, want to make sure that each piece of content has one job to do. If you're giving a piece of content multiple calls to action, then it's not going to get your followers to take action on it. Because again, we're on social media most of the time to relax and just kind of tune out and really connect with our friends and family. So if you're asking your followers to decide what to do on that post because it's not super clear whether you want them to click through and read your blog or whether you want them to answer a question right there, they're not going to take action on it. So one content item and one call to action. You also really want to make sure that you're doing things like asking questions related to the content you're putting out there. So if you've written a blog post, let's say, for example, if MeetEdgar wrote a blog post about batching your social media, we could go out there and put a question out there like, hey, who here practices a batching strategy for their social media status updates? We're hoping we'll get a lot of people commenting in the comments about if they use that strategy or not. For the people in the comments who comment that they don't know what batching is or that they don't do it yet or they need help with this, we're going to then take that blog post link and answer them in the comments. Again, we could just share that blog post on social media, and we will. But this strategy is really great at relationship building because people feel like you're being helpful directly to them and you're speaking one-on-one and not just broadcasting this content everywhere. So look at the content you have and look for ways that you can actually put questions related to that content out there and then answer people in the comment section so you get more engagement on that post and people feel like there's a one-on-one connection to you. And if you're batching your status updates and distributing them in a systemized way, you'll have a lot more time to do this live engagement on social media. So that's why those first few steps are so important, so that you can spend the time engaging with people and doing things like polls in your stories, asking people questions in your stories and directly answering them, or doing this question idea here so people are reminded that you want them to talk to you on social media. All right, so step number 4 is upcycling your content. So what upcycling your content is taking one piece of content and making multiple status updates out of it. We don't want you to reinvent the wheel every time. So how this works is, let's say you're taking one blog post and you're making it into multiple status updates. You don't just have to share the link every time. You can do really creative things like write and research a really good blog post. And then could you take that and turn it into a podcast? It doesn't have to be hard. You can simply just read the blog post into a podcast format. Some people, like myself, actually love listening to podcasts way more than I love reading. So if you're giving me the opportunity to consume your content in the medium that I like to consume it best, I'm going to be more likely to actually take action and listen to it. Vice versa. Some people might not like listening to a podcast, but they might like reading a blog post. So you can get that one piece of content in multiple forms to make sure you're giving people the opportunity to consume the content in the medium that they want. Another idea for this is you could take that same blog post that you researched and you could actually go ahead and put some of the copy in there into your newsletter. This is another piece of content because you know not everyone is going to actually read your blog, but you have really valuable tips in there that you already researched and wrote. So why wouldn't you just copy and paste those ideas into your newsletter and send that out to your followers? You're not having to reinvent the wheel with every content item you're putting out there. And a lot of people get afraid that, like, what if someone actually read the blog post and then I'm copy and pasting it into my newsletter? Remind yourself, you want to be seen as an expert in your field. To be seen as an expert, you have to repeat yourself sometimes. It goes back to this idea that if you had to go to the doctor, let's say, to get a surgery, would you choose the doctor who's done 100 different surgeries? Or would you choose the doctor who's done the same surgery 100 times? You'd probably want that doctor who's done the same surgery 100 times because he's more of an expert. So I talk about like upcycling social media all of the time because that's something that MeetEdgar would like to be seen as an expert in. And it's okay if I repeat myself, because when people hear the term upcycling out there, they're going to associate it with MeetEdgar's strategy of posting on social media. So you want to get these hooks that are really good for showcasing you as an expert and make sure that you're using them in every piece of content you're putting out there. Next, you could take that same blog post. So we're still looking at that same pillar piece of content, and you could go ahead and turn that into a graphic, what's known as a quotable on social media. So just copy and pasting some pull quotes, putting them on a background in, say, a program like Canva, which is a graphic design program, because again, social media has to be a really visual place. So sometimes if you're just putting links or if you're just putting text, it's not going to grab people's eyes. Some people are really attractive to colors and really attracted to graphics. So if you're not putting that kind of content out there, you might not be really grabbing those people. But you're not doing more work really here. You're just using what you've already researched and written in a quality way and upcycling it into a graphic. Next, you could take that same blog post and you can make a PDF from it. Remember, you want to make sure that you're always using social media to build up your traffic to your website and to build up your email list, because those are two things you own. You own your website and you own your email list. You do not own social media. So you want to take your followers who are on social media and bring them into your email list. But people are not just going to give you their emails. You have to give them something of value in exchange. What that value in exchange could be is a download, let's say, that really teaches people something like a checklist or something that you know your followers are working on, and they can download that in exchange for their email. So think about a lead magnet that you can actually create for your followers out of one of your blog posts. A good way of doing this is looking at the blog posts and thinking to yourself, what is the next step that my followers would take? So if I wrote a blog post, let's say, about upcycling your content, the concept we're talking about here, my PDF download could be a checklist for how to upcycle one blog post. Because after someone consumed my blog post about upcycling, I want to give them a resource where they can just check off and make this process even easier. So relate the lead magnets you have back to this pillar piece of content here. Another idea is you could go ahead and do a 2-minute video just explaining some of the takeaways from this blog post. We all know video is incredibly popular online these days, and it's something the algorithms are always giving value and preference to in people's feeds. So you want to make sure that you're taking advantage of that so your post can get the biggest reach possible. And you don't have to get really nervous about creating a new video because you already know the subject matter you're talking about, because it's this blog post that you went ahead and wrote. So once you have all of that, the last step in social media success is going to be engaging with your followers. So remember, all of this content that we're creating on social media gets a lot stronger if people are actually consuming it and actually talking about it with you. You want to make sure that you're scheduling and batching your status updates so you have time to engage with your followers. This becomes known as a concept that you don't want to post and ghost. If your followers learn that you're just posting something just to get your brand name out there and not to actually help them and talk with them, they're not going to respond to you, and you're not going to get the really big bump in engagement that your social posts deserve. So make sure you leave at the end of your day, let's say 10 minutes, to check in on all of the status updates that you wrote for that day and go ahead and engage with them. Now, mind you, listen to what I said there. Pick a time of day to do this. Don't feel like you have to log into social media every 5 minutes to make sure you're responding to a comment. It's okay if you respond a few hours later. And you want to batch your engagement in the same way that you're batching your social media status updates when you're creating them. Because we don't want social media to become something that's pulling you away from your other tasks in your business. We want social media to be something where you're doing it in a way that's really systemized. So at the end of your day or in the middle of your day, whenever you feel like you want a social media break anyway, why not use that social media break to engage with your followers rather than just mindlessly scrolling through? So leave 10, 15 minutes to go in and engage with people who commented on your posts that way. If you're not getting a lot of engagement and people aren't really commenting, use that batching time, that engagement time, to go out and DM some of your followers. Start talking to them and asking them questions. Go into Facebook groups or LinkedIn groups where you know your ideal followers already hang out, and start offering value in those groups. This is going to be a great way for you to be seen in other areas on social media. So make sure, even if you feel like you're not engaging with the posts that you're putting out there quite yet, if you're still building up your followers this way, go out to other areas, comment on other people in your industry's photos, build relationships online, and really collaborate to make sure that people are seeing you as a really helpful person on social media. And that online karma of going out there and doing good will come back to you by people actually feeling like they'll engage on your posts too. So whatever you do with engagement, just make sure that you're batching it and not having it take over your life. So it all starts with building trust and having a conversation with your followers. We started talking about this in a way that we're saying these steps are pretty simple, and I hope you feel that same way as we were going throughout this presentation. You can tell it's not rocket science. It just takes you having a systemized approach so that social media doesn't just get lost in your task list as something you get around to when you have time, because people are not going to pay attention to posts that aren't showing up consistently, that aren't showing up with really thought out intent behind them. And they're not going to go ahead and trust you if they're not seeing that content from you on a regular basis. So that's why systemizing your social media makes it a lot more effective. So make sure you start batching your content, you start engaging, and start really taking advantage of what these platforms do, which is bring your brand and your brand story in the way that you want to tell it right to the people who need your content. So what is your social media mindset? You really need to make sure you tell people how you can help them. That's really what marketing is when it comes down to it. It is simply telling people how your product and service can help them in their lives, and then they get to opt in to say yes or no if they need that product or service. So don't overcomplicate social media, but have systems behind it to really make sure that your content will shine. It was really fun talking to you guys today about social media success. It is one of my favorite things to speak about. If you have any questions at all, I'm happy to answer them. And I really hope that you take some of these tips into your social media marketing so social becomes a fun thing in your business.
Oh my God, what a wonderful workshop. Thank you so much, Megan. It's so insightful, and I love the perspective, because people usually, talk about topics or types of audience, and this time you covered a really different approach and this very deep systematic view on how it might work, and especially with the repeated content. I loved it. Thank you so much. And we actually have some time for questions, and we do have some questions. So I'm going to ask everyone, if you have something to ask, if you're curious about anything related to social media, especially in travel, it's the right time to write questions in the chat. So we are going to answer everything now. Okay, I see some comments coming. Okay, so we'll start with the questions that are already on my list. So the first one, it's not a question, rather a comment, but I decided to read it out loud. Hi, Megan. I was watching your previous webinar with Travelpayouts, and it was very insightful. Just, shout out from one of the listeners. I loved it too.
Thank you.
So well, hopefully we're going to produce some nice content. Okay, so the next question. If you were to start your own travel blog about a certain location, let's say I live in Sicily and I'm going to write about this place, what social media would you use?
Great question. So you want to think about kind of not necessarily related to the place you're doing it, but about the people who you're trying to attract. So our idea on social media is you don't want to spread yourself too thin. So I like the fact that you're thinking you don't want to have to be on every single network, but you do want to amplify your message out to each network. So that's why using a tool like MeetEdgar can be helpful too, because you can take one piece of content and send it to Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Pinterest at the same time. But you can write it in the fashion that you know where your ideal audience is hanging out the most, because each network has a little bit of a different nature to it. So with a blog specifically, if you're being a content creator, I would say test out Twitter, because Twitter has a nature of people knowing that links are being shared a lot and people are clicking on those links. They know they're going to click off and go there. The other two I would really look at is going to be Pinterest. Pinterest is one of the best traffic drivers for content creators. Pinterest is interesting too, because you can post up to like 20 times a day on Pinterest and it's not going to hurt you at all. Whereas if you posted 20 times a day on Facebook, you can bet the algorithm's going to hide some of your posts. Pinterest is more of a search engine where people are going out there and specifically looking for inspiration. So if someone wanted to take a trip to Sicily and they went onto Pinterest and were searching travel tips there, it's likely your content, even if they're not following you on Pinterest, will show up in the search results. So Pinterest is a really awesome place if you're creating content like that also, because the algorithm actually wants to take people from Pinterest and have them go to their site. Pinterest's mission is to get people to actually take action on the ideas and inspiration they want. So they will prioritize posts that have links that are going to your blog in a way that like Facebook might hide those links. Again, everyone's audience is going to be different. So it kind of depends upon the demographic that you're trying to reach. So look at the age that you're writing for, look at where they might be, you know, for an example, like if you're writing for like 60-year-old travel tips, you know, people in retirement, how you can travel in this area, you don't want to be on like TikTok, but you would want to be on Facebook. So it comes down to really knowing who's in your audience and where they usually consume their content. And then thinking about if you want to direct people to your blog using networks like Twitter and Pinterest that really prioritize links. Whereas something like Instagram is great for doing photos, but Instagram is not great for driving traffic, right? Because no one can click on your links on Instagram. So just think about your kind of main goals with it and look at the networks and kind of what their natures are.
Well, great answer, and especially about Pinterest, which is my favorite, I would say.
Me too. I love it.
Yeah, it's a very, frequent question how to drive traffic, especially free traffic, and probably Pinterest is one of the top sources to do that. And actually, you mentioned that it all depends on the demographic you're trying to reach, and we have a question that refers to it pretty well. Are there any special tools or tips on assessing your audience on social media?
Great question. So there's a couple of things I'd suggest doing. First is just talking to your audience. Go to some of your members who are already following you or are already interacting with you and start a conversation in the DMs. It's a great thing to do because if they've already shown engagement with you, they'll likely talk back. Ask them about their hopes and dreams, ask them about their challenges in that way. You can also do things like go on to search engines like Pinterest or YouTube and start typing in keywords related to your industry. So for example, for MeetEdgar, we could go on and type in just the word social media. And you know how like on Google, that list will drop down and show you the top searches related to those words. The same thing happens on social media networks like Pinterest and YouTube because they are more of search engines. And you can start looking at the concepts that people are searching the most already to give you ideas about what type of content people within your industry are looking for. So if I type in social media on Pinterest, some of the main topics that might come up in that drop-down menu are things like social media calendar or social media status update or whatever it is. Then take that language and put them in your posts because you know that's going to be the language that people are already searching for the most. So you can do things like that. You can also go into groups like I was mentioning before and start looking at the questions that people in your groups are asking. So if you know you go to like a group on Facebook that's related to travel, start looking at some of the questions that people within that group are asking or look at the content that they're sharing and get ideas and inspiration for what people are really attracted to at that moment, the topics they're asking questions about, and then write helpful content about that. Because again, you're already proving that that content is being sought after online.
All right, thank you. So the next question is a bit longer than the previous, but quite curious and very specific for Travelpayouts affiliates probably. In travel affiliate marketing, helpful and promotional posts are somewhat blended. I mean, I write about choosing the best hotel and then add an affiliate link. Or I describe how to pack for a trip and add a link to a backpack. How should I apply that 80-20 rule?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that would be a really good thing to look at to add into any of your 20% posts to make them more engaging, is to make sure you're always being helpful in that promotional post. So I would keep it simple in the way that if you're putting out there a blog post about a hotel you want to stay at, or a social post about why you like staying at a certain hotel, and then your affiliate link to stay there, keep that in the 20%. And make sure you're still having that 80% where you don't have a link where you're trying to sell to people, but your status updates have the same kind of vibe and the same feel to them, where you're just telling people your stories. So I would say don't overcomplicate it. Just keep that in the 20% and know that you're selling in the best way possible, where you're allowing people to say, okay, yes, I want the experience and the story that they're telling me. Because that sales post you just mentioned is the best kind of sales post. You're putting social proof out there and telling people the experience you had and asking them to buy. And that's how you want to sell. You know, that post right there wouldn't be as strong if you were like, oh, my 20% posts have to just be buy this hotel off of my affiliate link, put it out there. So I'd say that's just part of your 20%, and you're doing an awesome job if you're sharing real stories about it.
Great answer. And the next question goes to me. It was about the recordings and the slides. Sorry, I probably forgot to mention that everything is being recorded right now, and the slides and videos will be available in a couple of business days after the end of the summit. So it's going to be in your inbox, and of course, we're not going to keep it for ourselves. Okay, the next question from Megan. How much time should a blogger spend on engagement? If there is too much feedback, like comments and mentions for me to respond to, should I think about hiring someone?
You could, if you're in a financial position too, and you trust the person that you're hiring to represent your brand in the way that you want your brand to come across online. That would be a great thing to outsource so that you can spend your time actually creating content that's moving the needle to get people aware of your brand more. However, I would also say, you know, if you can't afford that right now, just make sure you're doing your best. If you're not getting to every single comment every time, you could just leave, like I mentioned, 20 minutes at the end of your day to go on and engage with all of your posts. And if you don't get to every single one at the end, just go ahead and write a general comment in there and be like, hey, sorry if I didn't answer your question. Like, thank you so much for engaging, and express your gratitude. People will understand that for sure. But I also kind of agree with you that if you can afford to go ahead and do this and you're having that amount of engagement and you can afford to hire a VA to help you with that, it would be a great way to spend your money and outsource something in your business.
That's right. Are there any specific software to actually track this kind of content? The brand mentions or comments?
That's a great question. So I'm not aware of a software that just does that. MeetEdgar, our social media automation tool, does have some history analytics in it that you can go ahead and check on, how many people have clicked through on a link, the traffic you drove to that link, and see kind of what times of day it's happening the most, stuff like that. So most like social media tools probably have something within it if you just go out and search like best social media tools on Google. But I don't use anything but MeetEdgar, so I feel like I'm not the best person to answer that for specific engagement related ones.
That's all right. All right, next question. Is it possible to grow in travel on social media organically? Is it worth it, or should I invest in paid promotion?
Great question. So you need to do both probably on social media. Unfortunately, it is a pay to play space these days, but your organic content absolutely should be the first thing you're focusing on. And you should use the organic content you're putting out there as as kind of a test and as a measurement for what you should promote, because you don't want to be going out there and spending money behind posts that aren't resonating with your followers. So if you put a blog post out there, and let's say you go to your Facebook Insights and you see that that blog post got a lot of engagement, but not a lot of reach, that might be a really good post to bump some money behind, because it's resonating with your followers if it got engagement. So you want to give it more reach. Whereas if you go into your Facebook Insights and you see that a blog post got a decent amount of reach but did not get a lot of engagement, don't put money behind it, because it's not going to be something that's going to really be resonating with your followers. So use the content you're putting out there on organic social media to determine what messages you should put money behind in your paid promotion. So you have to do both, but you might as well get the most out of the post you're putting money behind by really testing what messages are working the best. But you need to have a really up-to-date and consistent organic posting schedule, because if someone just Googles your brand online, sometimes the very first thing they're going to do is go over to social media and see what you're all about. And if they see that you haven't posted in a couple of months, your brand's not going to become something that they trust. So make sure you're always having an organic schedule to inform your paid strategy, and to make sure when people are researching your brand online that they see you're active on social media.
Awesome. We've got so many questions actually. So, well, I love it usually. I really love to see how the audience engages and, engages with the speakers and with the flow of the presentation. So the question is about MeetEdgar as a company. What's the difference between MeetEdgar and Tailwind?
Great question. So Tailwind is specifically for Pinterest and Instagram. MeetEdgar works with Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Pinterest, and Instagram for your posts. So we work with a few more networks, and we are also based on a category-based evergreen system. So those categories we talked about, they are the backbone of our software tool. You're always going to categorize your posts. We have an evergreen library, so meaning every status update you put into your MeetEdgar library will always remain in there. Or a lot of other social tools, you'll put the status update in there, it'll send out, and then it'll be gone from the software. However, MeetEdgar likes to do our automation rules on that evergreen fashion, where we're resharing your content on the schedule that you set so that you're getting the most out of your tools. So the main difference for Edgar and other tools, whether it's Tailwind or someone else, are that we do work with most networks, and we're based on a category and evergreen posting system.
Great. I think we're going to answer to a couple of questions, and probably will be out of time, but I see them coming, and I'd like to ask the Travelpayouts team to put the support email of Travelpayouts and MeetEdgar. So in case someone has a very urgent question, they can ask our support team directly, so that we do not miss this question or lose it somehow. All right, so two more questions for Megan. What type of content gets small views on Facebook and Instagram? Maybe videos, pictures with quotes, pictures with people with them, maybe something else?
Yeah. So again, it depends on your audience. There's never one right answer on social media. So if you find someone who's saying this is what you should do on social media, that's not the right answer. It depends on what kind of content your specific audience likes to consume. But photos and video are always going to be the thing that catches our eye first. So I like to explain it as you want to put images, you want to put video out there to stop the scroll. So people just scrolling through. Images are processed by our brain a lot faster than just text is. So you want to make sure you have some images, you want to make sure you have some videos in there, and then you want to just pay attention to what type of content your specific audience likes to consume the most. Like I was mentioning before, some people really love reading blog posts. Maybe your community is made up of that. Other people want to listen or watch a video more. So you have to experiment, and you have to pay attention to your analytics, because if you're not doing that and you're not listening to your followers and taking their feedback back into your social media strategy, it's likely you're not going to improve on social media. So just pay attention to the likes, pay attention to the comments, pay attention to the click-through rate that you're getting on your posts, and really feed that back into your strategy.
Awesome. And last question for this workshop. Actually, you answered to it in the course of the presentation, but I would like to read it once again so that you could summarize that very important point for the presentation. So the question was asked at the very beginning. Can I sometimes repeat content on my social pages, or it must be always unique? For example, seasonal content such as tips for the summer travels.
Oh my goodness, please repeat your content. Absolutely. You can even do your seasonal content in a way that you can repeat it each year. So like if you're using MeetEdgar to do this, or if you're just using if you're just using like a spreadsheet system to do this, write your status updates, for example, for summer travel. Within MeetEdgar, you could put these into your summer travel category on your spreadsheet. You could just have a list of summer travel posts that you've written out. You can then pop that category onto your schedule and let it run through the summer months where you're rotating through those posts. Once the summer month is over, you can just remove that category from your schedule within MeetEdgar, and those posts won't send out until you pop that category back on. So if you're doing this without a software, same deal applies. Just make sure you're like copy and pasting your summer travel posts onto social media for the 3 months during summer travel. But you've already created them. So why wouldn't you use them the following season? Because it's likely you've gained new followers during that time frame. So you want to make sure they're seeing your best content out there. So even if it's seasonal content, feel free to repeat it every year. Feel free to repeat content that's evergreen for year round. Everyone's schedule for how often they repeat is going to be different. You know, for example, here at MeetEdgar, we repeat our blog posts that we know drive the most traffic. So when we pay attention to our Google Analytics or our Facebook Insights, and we see that a blog post is one of the strongest traffic driving posts, we repeat those posts once a month. But we repeat our other posts that aren't going to drive as much traffic, but still drive some traffic, more on like a quarterly basis. So identify the content that's really doing the most for you and repeat that content more often. Again, it's just a sign from your followers that this is really valuable content to them. So pay attention and definitely don't be afraid to repeat your content, whether it's evergreen or seasonal.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you, Megan, for joining us today.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you so much.
All right. And thank you, everyone, for being here with us. I think now we're going to have a short break before the next workshop. But before that, let me remind you, if you're not working with Travelpayouts yet, you can use this time to register for free with a special promo code that will instantly add $25 to your Travelpayouts balance. You can find this promo code in the comments, and we will see you in 2 minutes.
Yuki.
Год собаку никто не мыл.
Да, молодец! Ой, какой классный пес! Паркур! Да! Задом!
Welcome back to day 2 of the Travelpayouts Affiliate Summit. This is stream A, and we are ready to start our next workshop. But before that, let me remind you that there are 2 streams, and stream B will be continued by Alexa Williams-Meisler. She's going to dive deeply into the topic of using Facebook ads to drive traffic to optimize articles, and she will teach you how to spend $1 a day to increase your affiliate revenue. The link to stream B is in the comments already. All right, once again, my name is Olga Gachkova. I'm marketing manager at Travelpayouts, one of the largest travel affiliate networks in the world. And I'm happy to introduce you our next speaker, Patrick Stokes, a product advisor, technical SEO, and brand ambassador at Ahrefs. The workshop will take around 45 minutes, and then we'll answer all of your questions. Honestly, this is going to be one of my favorite workshops ever, because Patrick will share a super useful skill of finding other affiliates' most successful content. Welcome, Patrick.
Hi, thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm super excited for this too. A little bit about me. I've written for a lot of SEO blogs, spoken at conferences all over the world. I've judged all kinds of awards. This is actually my very first time talking about affiliate marketing, which is interesting because a lot of people don't know that I do a lot of affiliate marketing. Just publicly, I'm more known as a technical SEO. This was my first time looking at the travel niche, so I'm excited to share kind of what I found and some of my personal processes for going through and trying to determine what kind of content I need. Like, can I compete? Will I be successful if I compete in these niches? Again, travel is new to me. I actually do a lot with like scrapbooking, like doomsday prepping, scientific test equipment, some high-end microscopes and that kind of thing. This is the traditional way of doing keyword research. You start, you're like, do competing sites, do they have a lot of, you pick a keyword, you're like, okay, who ranks? Do they have a lot of links? Are they getting a decent amount of traffic? You know, are the pages talking about just one thing or many things? And you go through a giant list of keywords. It's very time consuming. You're just trying to find like that one keyword to see, will I be successful if I go after this or not? I have a different process for this, which I'm going to share with you all, because this can be really, really time consuming, and everyone's looking for that one golden keyword that no one else is targeting, and you'll rarely ever find it. You'll spend hours, days, weeks doing this research and then just not. You're like, I don't know if I can compete. And it's analysis or paralysis by analysis. You'll spend more time thinking, can I do this? Can I make this work? Than you will actually just doing the thing. And what I've always found is like, you just need to go pick something and go with it. So everyone's looking for that one keyword, and making tons of content. But 90.63% of pages receive no organic search traffic from Google. This is based on a big study we did at Ahrefs. And, you know, it's scary. People make all this content. There are, you know, literally billions of pages going out on the web every single day that just never get seen by anyone. They never get any traffic from search engines. So what I like to do is just go ahead and look at what is successful for my competitors. Who else in the travel space is doing well? Like, how are they getting their traffic? So this is actually my personal process for this. It is using Ahrefs. Before I even worked at Ahrefs, I was actually at IBM for about 4 years. I had an agency before that and had my own consulting business even before that. So I've been doing this a long time. But I've been using Ahrefs since probably 2014. And this is literally what I do. I pick a site. So in this case, I chose booking.com. It's a site I personally use. So I was kind of curious what kind of content was driving to Booking. And in what we have a tool called Site Explorer, you can basically look up the backlinks for any domain. So this is backlinks for booking.com. And you can filter further to include either an equal sign or a question mark. Now, the point of this is to find parameters, because every affiliate link is going to be tagged with some kind of parameter to say, like, this is where this traffic came from. This is the site that linked over. So with Booking, it was super easy to identify their public parameter. Everything was question AID equals, which is probably affiliate ID. So these are the different websites and basically their IDs that link over to Booking, that are driving traffic to Booking. But what that means is I'm seeing the affiliates. These are tagged links linking over there. These are the affiliate sites. So if I sort that by traffic, I then can see literally the most successful affiliate websites that are linking to Booking. Now, these are the public affiliate sites. I will make that clear. A lot of people will mask their URLs. They will go through third-party networks like Travelpayouts. Their links wouldn't show because they block crawlers. But you can check those too. So this is actually how I checked for Travelpayouts in particular. I don't know what other travel like conglomerates are out there. I'm sure there's a few, but Travelpayouts is the best. Yay. So what I found is that they use kind of the same style for all their formats. So it's like C and then a number.travelpayouts.com. And each of those kind of corresponds to a different website. So C84 is the one I found that's booking.com. So basically people link to C84.travelpayouts.com, that redirects to Booking. We don't see that in Hrefs because we're not allowed to follow that link from C84.travelpayouts.com to booking.com. But we can still see the links to C84.travelpayouts.com, if that makes sense. So again, this is just another way to find even more content that's being created that is driving to the website. Every single network is going to have something similar to this. So you can kind of get all the different content, export it all, combine the data, and see the most trafficked affiliate content within a niche. Or for a particular site in this case. So I could do this for any site. I could do this at any scale. So I wanted one as an example, but if I really wanted, I could go look at TripAdvisor and 100 other travel websites that have affiliate programs and say, like, what content are people creating? What content are other affiliates creating that are driving to these websites that are making them money? Now, I only speak partially one other language, Spanish, so I filtered this further down to just English content because I wouldn't even want to try to create content in another language. So this is basically now looking at only the top 1,000 pages that are driving to booking.com that are English content. The top pages, interestingly enough, are all tools. Michelin has this route planner. I guess it's Edelweiss. If someone's German, I probably just butchered that. I'm sorry. But I thought this was really interesting that the top content, the most traffic content are tools that are driving to it, to these sites. Now, I don't figure everyone is going to go out and build a bunch of tools. I'm certainly not. Like, that's going to be a lot of effort, a lot of work. But there's plenty of other opportunities. There were literally tons and tons of sites that have great content. And what I wanted to show is you can make a lot of this stuff yourself easily. So I took the top 1,000 pages. We looked at tools. So these were some of the tools that are the most successful pages. About 1/3 of the top content was like where to stay or the top hotels, best hotels, that kind of thing. It makes perfect sense because I'm looking at booking.com. This is what they do, like book me a hotel. So all the top content around it, or a third of it at least, is mostly about like booking hotels. This is going to vary depending on the site you're looking at and kind of what they do. You know, if I'm looking at like Trainline, that's probably all going to be, you know, about trains, about different routes, about like different terminals. So this is going to change depending on your site, but for this one, you know, about a third of the top content was all like where do I stay, best places to stay in different cities. I wanted to show how I categorize this. Now, I would say there's no right or wrong way of doing this. Everyone's going to have slightly different views, make slightly different categorizations. There's no one way of doing it. There's no right or wrong way. I just wanted to say this is how I viewed it as someone that's very new to the niche. So some of you are probably way more familiar and would do this differently. So we already saw like best hotels, but there were also like a lot of best places to visit, top things to do. So like this example, 25 best places to visit in Mexico. This is one of the most successful pages. I think anyone could come up with a list or look at, you know, best places to visit in any city, kind of reuse a lot of that content. You're going to have a list of the stuff that's already kind of considered important that people probably want to do just by looking at competing pages. There were weekend getaways. A lot of people within a city want to get out of a city. It's not just people that want to go to certain cities and do things and stay there. People also want to leave from these major cities and know where, like, I can take my family for a trip to the beach, to the mountains. Where can I go away just for a few days for a little escape? And it was kind of the same with certain niches like skiing, beaches, cruises. Where do I go? Where can I go to ski? Where can I go to the beach? What are the best beaches? What cruises should I take? There's this comparison content where people are still trying to figure out, like, where should I go? What should I do? There was a lot of city versus city content. So in this case, Singapore versus Hong Kong. Should I go to New York or Seattle? Basically, people are giving their own opinions about, like, or different things to do in each city, so that when people are doing this research, they can figure out which city do I want to go to based on the things that I like to do. There was a lot of cost-sensitive content. So best places to go on a budget, or, you know, cheap places to stay. You know, in general, people are cost sensitive when they're traveling. They probably don't get but a couple vacations a year. They want to make their money go as far as they can. And then there were a lot related to, like, traveling with, you know, for couples, for kids. There's actually some content that around baby moons, which I thought was really interesting because it was a term I had never heard of, but it's basically a vacation people take before their child is born. So they want to know, like, where can they go that, you know, a pregnant woman can safely get around and make things easy for them, but just one final getaway before it's harder with kids. You know, then there's honeymoon. Where can I go backpacking? Where can I bring my pets? There's a ton of content around pets. People want to travel with their dogs. They want a hotel they can stay with their dogs. They want parks they can go to with their dogs. Pet-friendly restaurants. It was a crazy amount of content. People are obsessed with their pets. I'm not surprised. I have 2 cats. I don't travel with them typically, but I think dogs are probably easier for that. And people definitely want to know, like, where can I go that I can still have my dog? I can take them for walks. I can go eat. I can go to a bar. Probably nowhere right now, the way the world is, but maybe there are some places still. And you can see, like, this one article here, they actually have their view count on the screen. So 352,000 people have viewed this one single article. Now, how many of those click through the link to booking.com? I don't know, but there's probably a good chance that they're promoting a bunch of different things within this article that link over there. So that's an insane amount of traffic, an insane amount of opportunities. We saw tools already, so I'm going to skip this. Where to stay was one of the most popular topics, and people will break it down in different ways. I thought this was really interesting because you have luxury hotels, boutique hotels, cheap hotels. These are basically all the things people are looking for. They're actually searching for these things. So I want a fancy place to stay, or I need a budget place because I have kids and, you know, this vacation's costing me a ton already. They want safe neighborhoods. They want neighborhoods where they can do certain things. So this example was a great breakdown of different options. So it's not just like, here are my top 10 hotels, but like, here are my top places based on certain individual characteristics that I'm interested in. And it's really useful content for people. There were terminal guides for airports. So like if I'm in Chicago, if I'm in New York, if I'm in London, how do I get around? Where do I eat? What are typical delays? This is really useful content for travelers. And then events. What is going on at the time that I'm going there? What things can I go do? Am I making a trip specifically to go to one of those events? Maybe there's a big food festival or something, or a concert that I want to go see. And that might be the reason the person is traveling. So event content, again, was really successful. Things to do. I love these lists. I view these every time I'm going somewhere. I want to know what my options are so I can make a plan personally. So I use these top lists all the time. Some of them will even have like route plans. Like if I only have a day, what are the things I should do? If I have 2 days, what are the things I should do? If I'm spending a week in a city, you know, here's basically day by day, the things that might be interesting to me. And I love those lists. I use those lists personally a ton. Specific experiences. If you want to go on a naked bike ride in London, apparently that's an event. There are a lot of very unique and interesting things that are city specific or even country specific. One that I guess just happened already, or maybe it didn't happen this year, I'm not sure. Oktoberfest in Germany would be a great example. You know, probably one of the biggest reasons people travel there at that time of year is to go to that event. Maps was also really interesting. And one of the great things about this is you can get your like logo on it. People will be referring to it constantly as they try and navigate around a city, go to like locations where you specifically said. I used one of these in New Orleans to do my own like walking tour of a historic housing district. So like I was going around to all the different mansions and everything. And it was just one that this company made that like helped me plan my route and go around. And then that one even had like links on it to take me to the information about each interesting house. And of course you have where to eat, where to shop, bars to go to, what things should I buy when I'm visiting, what are popular gifts to bring back. All this content is really useful to people. It's the kind of things they want to know when they're traveling. And then I wanted to look at somewhat why this content is successful. One of the first things I looked at was the links. I have always heard the travel niche is really competitive. And if you're TripAdvisor or Booking, it probably is extremely competitive. But they're hitting more high-level topics. more topics that are going to be interesting to a lot more people, probably have hundreds of thousands, if not millions of visits to it. The affiliate content in this niche is still fairly well trafficked. I mean, you're looking at a lot of pages here with thousands of visitors. But one of the things I found interesting was that there's not a ton of links needed to compete in this content. I'm not saying it's none, because it's definitely not none. But this is, you know, a tenth of what I had expected to find. I thought there would be a lot more links to this type of content. And some of it is doing well and does have a lot of links to it. And we'll talk a bit about that in a sec, what they're doing to get their links. One of the most popular was the budget sensitive type content. So like coupon sites, Groupon, there's literally 1,000 coupon sites. How much impact they have, I'm not really sure. A lot of these I saw were no follow links, so they're not really passing the value. But it's still interesting. There's tons of opportunity because every one of these sites is probably getting traffic also that they're going to send to you, and that can just like boost your own affiliate income. There's news and magazine sites. Every single city has their own newspapers, their own magazines. One of the most successful ways I saw people doing it was just being really useful. Having unique information that was actually being cited by other sources like news and magazines. And it would, again, like informational references, it was the same here. So like one of the most successful pages in the entire list was this Tokyo Cheapo thing, and it was all about this fish market, and they have these incredible amount of data about the fish market, like why you should go there, the fish you could buy, things you should know, the history of the market, the hours. And they were quoted again and again and again by like everyone, news, magazines, informational references, even other affiliate sites cited this specific resource, which was incredible. They did a really great job, and now I want to go to that fish market too. Again, I use this example because other travel sites cited this. I don't know how I can emphasize how important that is. Their information is so good that their competitors link to them, sent people away from their own affiliate site over to this site. They basically are so good that you can't not link to them. There were tons of links in forums on Reddit. People are asking all the time, like, where should I go? What should I do? And I don't know how, there were at least some that were affiliate, but I thought this was really interesting because in general, I would say this is a place you probably want to be monitoring if there's any like specific travel forums or subreddits. Because people are in there being helpful, telling people their own experiences, recommending places they should stay, places they should eat, things they should do in certain cities. This is a great place to, I would say, promote your own website and share your own experiences. There were some very niche specific. I mentioned pets, for instance. People were really enthusiastic about their pets, and they made all kinds of content about like traveling with their pets and everything, and I just found that really fascinating. But there's tons of opportunities out there. Women, I would say the main concern I saw in the content was all about safety. Where can I safely go backpacking as a single woman, for instance? You know, their main concern seemed to be safety, safe places to stay, safe places to travel, you know, alone, for instance. So there's opportunities out there because of concern for safety, because they want to know like where they're going to feel welcome, where their pets are going to be welcome. And then there were a lot of like very local links. I mentioned before magazines, newspapers, But one of the other things I noticed was newsletters, city-specific email newsletters going out, and podcasts where people were like interviewing people in their own town. I found that a lot of the successful ones for this were like people that lived in a certain city, like London, for instance. They are there, and they're known as like a travel resource for the city, and like for places to eat and all that stuff. And they get on these local podcasts, and they get a link that way, which is amazing because you have local links about the city that your content is about. So you can look for opportunities around, podcasts, newspapers, magazines. Literally search like your city plus those, and you'll probably find a dozen opportunities. Reach out. I'm sure they're always looking for people to talk to, for resources to have an interesting conversation with. Should be fairly straightforward. I think you just have to ask. And then photos. A lot of these travelers are not only doing this for Instagram or that kind of thing, but a lot of the affiliate sites are making their photos available to other websites. They're using like Creative Commons attribution with a link required. And what they're doing is basically getting other sites that to use their amazing photos and then link back to them, link back to their website. So I'd say if you're really good at photography, this is a great strategy. Make your photos available. Don't copyright them. A lot of sites are like, no, you're not allowed to use my photo. I took that. If you want traffic, if you want links, this is a really interesting way of doing it. Just make your photos available for free, let other people use them, but require them to link back to you. And there's like a couple of different Creative Commons licenses, I think version 3 and version 4, that require the link attribution for them to use your content. And then if they use it without the attribution, you can email them and be like, hey, this is, my photo, and like it requires a link attribution, and you can get a link that way if they've already used your photo by just saying like, it's required, please add this, thank you. And then there was a lot of spam links, also some Web 2.0. I recognized a couple of the programs actually that were used because they kind of build links from the same websites over and over and over again. So it was kind of easy to identify different spam networks and programs that were being used. I would say don't do that. It doesn't really get you much in most cases. There are a lot better opportunities to get links. I also wanted to see internal links on these pages. These are links from one page on their website to another page on their site. What I found is there's a decent number of internal links. So these aren't typically small sites. They're not like I made one page, which is common in some other affiliate niches. So like I just want like one long sales page, and that's my thing for the for this product. Like is I have this one thing that I'm pushing. A lot of these are making this related content. Again, like where do I stay? Where do I eat? Things I do, what events are going on. They're making a lot of pages around these specific topics, or like in many cases around a specific city. Tokyo is a great example. It's not just like I have one page about Tokyo and another about New York or wherever. I have 50 pages about Tokyo and different things. So they really focused on a very specific location that they're familiar with. The content itself on these pages, these top pages anyway, was really useful. One of the things I noticed is it's almost exactly the same things that people are searching for, which in SEO, that's what you do. You literally look at what people are searching, you write content about the same things that they're searching. It's fairly straightforward. Just kind of group the different keywords and find out what people are interested in, and then like help them get the information that they want. And then when people search, they find you. So people looking, this is one specific site. I went through a bunch of different terms that people are searching around La Jolla Cove. So they're looking suites, which I thought would be like, you know, a suite for hotels, but it's actually a very specific hotel that it's popular that people want to stay at. They are looking for other hotels. So they have a list of best hotels. They have, you know, a little bit of pricing info down there, which I think is great. Like this is, I think this could even be better by adding, say, like reviews or interesting tidbits about each one. You know, there's, even though this is one of the best performing pieces of content around La Jolla, I would say there's opportunities to even do better. And that's kind of the case with all this content. Look at what's out there, figure out ways you can make it better. Seals are a main attraction, you know, the little like creatures with whiskers that swim in the ocean. People want to go see the seals here. And so like they have places where you can take photos of them, where you can kind of like, they even have one place where you could kind of play with them, which I thought was interesting. Seems a little dangerous to me, but I'm kind of risk adverse on that stuff. Where to park, this is going to be for every major city. It's one of my biggest frustrations when I travel. I hate to get a car just because I'm like, I have no idea where to park, and hopefully the hotel has parking if I do get a car. But then if I go out somewhere, I'm like, I have no idea. So I prefer like public transport when I can take it, because parking is my nightmare. Beaches, where to go, where can I bike along the beach, where can I kayak at the beach? They're writing literally the same things that people are searching, writing sections of content. What's the address? How do I get there? They even have a guide which provides like details. If I'm coming from this place or coming from this other place, how do I get there? What are my driving directions? Kayaking, snorkeling, again, same things people are searching for, they're writing about. They're even dropping links to like, this is the place where you can go rent a kayak. This is where you can get snorkeling gear. This is where I can go pay for someone to guide me around on like a snorkeling tour. So they found other avenues besides booking.com, which I was specifically looking at, to get additional revenue streams by promoting certain vendors that they have a relationship with. And all that to say, they're really just talking about the same things that people search for. And that is the #1 thing in SEO, write the content that people are looking for. That's it. It's fairly simple. It's fairly straightforward. You can look at a list of terms for a city and know exactly like what people are looking, what they want, what information they want. So you just give that to them. But one of the things I noticed is that certain content performs better than others. Of course, that's how it's always going to be. There can only be so many people on the first page. So a lot of the top content does kind of say the same thing. If you've got a list of best hotels, well, I maybe have 100 hotels in the city. So of course they're going to have like the same 10, 15, 20 hotels on all their pages. So how do you differentiate? How do you become better? How do you be better? How do you become more interesting for people? One of the ways was that people added their own experience and expertise. Now, this is in my home city of Raleigh. I looked at I think every top things to do list on the first page, and I think I might have found one that had this. This is called the Shimmer Wall, and it's like a must-see thing. It's like, this is 44 feet by 210 feet, or like, what would that be in meters? Like 13 by 70 meters of these little like 4-inch metal tiles that move in the wind. And so this big tree, when the wind blows, will look like the tree is actually moving in the wind. It is an amazing architectural feat. This thing is lighted with LED lights at night. It's an absolute must see in my opinion. And one of the things that when I'm showing people around town, I will always show them. I didn't find this, but on like one best things to do, top things to do list. And this is, you know, basically giant moving sculpture that it is just absolutely incredible and blows people away. But because I'm here, I know that this exists. If I look at those lists, I'm guessing the people that made those made that content aren't from the city mostly, or they would absolutely know this. This is right in our downtown. Like you literally can't miss it. You can see this thing for like, you know, miles around. And having your own unique experiences, your own expertise about a location will go a long way to show them what is unique and interesting. I do this when I go to other cities too. I can go look on Google or TripAdvisor and find like best places to eat, blah, blah, blah. But that's usually from the tourists. Like I want to know the places the locals go. I want to experience the local cuisine, and I would go out of my way to go find that. And they also had their own photographs and videos. I mentioned this about like getting links, but this is also content. And this is kind of how we do it at Ahrefs. We have our own like artists draw up for every blog post. They'll have a featured image. For videos, we have our own images. It's just another way to kind of set you apart. You can have a recognizable style or not. You know, I think we try for that, but you don't have to. But this is just another way of making your own content unique. If you're just having videos, just having your own images is incredible. I tried to find an image of the shimmer wall that was like free for use, and I didn't find a single one. I bet if there was one in Raleigh, like people would be linking to it like crazy. So I actually took one of my own images that I now might make free to use if I ever do a site in the travel niche. But that's a good way of getting links, of making your content stand out, of showing people you experiencing these things rather than just talking about the things to do. And I kind of talked about this already, but they're writing a lot of articles on the same topic. So look at this one, for instance, where to stay in London. Look at what else they have. Best hotels in London, best hotels for families in London, best boutique hotels in London, cheap hotels in London, choice hotels in London, London with kids, things to do in London. They're really covering the city and kind of all the things that people are interested in. And then they're making all these pages and then linking that content together. Those internal links, like they pass value. Each page will make your other pages stronger. And it's going to be helping them rank. They're really becoming topically relevant about London in this case, but this can be for any city. And the types of content that I mentioned that seems successful, you can make every one of those for like any city in the world, or every one of those for every city in the world if you have enough time. So just to sum up quickly, we looked at how to find the successful affiliate content based on like the links going to the different sites. Kind of looked at like why that's successful based on the links, the internal, like external links, internal links. They're adding their own content, their own expertise, their own experiences, and they're kind of looking at how else they can get links. What other opportunities are there? Again, like the local podcasts, newsletters, articles, magazines. Really, you have almost an unlimited amount of opportunities if you're focused in a specific area. And that was it. I'm really looking forward to questions because I know SEO always has a lot of questions.
Wow, that was a wonderful guide. Oh my God, I will have to watch it again because there's so many instructions and so much advice. I will definitely watch it again, and just let me remind everybody that we're going to have the recordings available. All right, we do have some questions, of course, and I'm going to read them out loud. And if you don't mind, you can answer as well, so we don't miss anything. Okay, the first one is there any minimum limit for traffic of other travel bloggers I want to compare myself with when using Ahrefs?
Any limit, you're going to have to set that yourself. I wouldn't say there's a particular threshold. I didn't really look into how much like travel payouts and all will pay based on like the sign up clicks or anything. But I think that's going to be dependent on like how much revenue you're going to get. If it's, you know, if I'm only going to get 10 people and I make $1 a person, maybe that's not worth my time to create. If I get 10 people and each one of those is worth, you know, $10,000, well, that's probably worth my time to create. So I think you're going to have to set your own thresholds there.
Well, that's an important consideration, actually. Yeah, good answer. Thank you. So the next question, could I somehow protect my website from the Ahrefs? If I do not want other webmasters find my pages, what is the way to hide it from the Ahrefs search?
So you can block our crawler, but that's really only going to keep us from seeing your own website. We have like ahrefs.com/robots, I think will tell you how to do that. But it basically means we won't be able to crawl your site and see who you link to, but we'll still see where you rank in search results. So we'll still see the traffic that you're getting. We're still going to see the links to your website. Again, like I think Travelpayouts had blocked all bots from seeing that like subdomain that redirects. So like, but I can still see all the links going to that subdomain. So I don't know that there's a really, you'll be able to basically prevent us from seeing who you link to, but that's it.
Okay, I got it. So the next question from the chat. If I find myself among those 91% who never get discovered, what should be my first steps to change that?
Figure out how you can make your page better. Go look at the competing pages and see what they did. Again, maybe they have unique photography. Maybe they're just covering more of the things that people are searching for. Maybe they've made additional pages and are linking back, like internally linking to that specific content. You know, typically I would prioritize and say like, make your content better, talk about more things, add your unique experiences, add internal links. Internal links are always an easy win. You know, you're basically like, we spend a lot of time as SEOs building links from other websites, and we rarely will go back and say like, oh, here's my old content I created 3 years ago.
Right,
Maybe I should like go back to that and add links to my new content and make that, you know, have a chance of being more successful. So internal links are extremely important. We actually just launched a tool within Ahrefs to help find internal link opportunities on your website.
Oh, that's awesome. So everyone just go and see what's going on Ahrefs website as well. Well, I did that. They have lots of really useful tools for travel bloggers, especially those who you know, use travel affiliate techniques to increase their profits as well. So the next question from the chat. Can I somehow see how other travel affiliate marketers use affiliate links in their most successful articles?
Just go look at which ones are getting a bunch of the traffic, and you'll have to go into each individual page and like look at how they link to it. I showed a few examples, but it's, yeah, each one is going to be different. What I found was really interesting was some people were mixing, I think I showed that in the La Jolla example, mixing multiple affiliates within and saying like, here are places to stay, but here's also like where you can go scuba diving and a company to help you with that, and like for a bike tour. And so they had multiple revenue streams all on the same page, basically.
Wow, that's right. Yeah, thank you. Okay, we have 2 more questions. So I'm going to ask all our listeners to start writing their questions. It's the best time, to ask whatever you want to know. Does Ahrefs help to analyze content on social media and in public chats and messengers like Telegram or WhatsApp?
Not in Telegram or WhatsApp. We don't have that. Social media, we do have a lot of data around. If you're familiar with like BuzzSumo, we basically have like sort of BuzzSumo. We have Content Explorer, where we'll actually pull like who's been tweeting content in a niche. You can look up who's basically sharing everything. You can look up even authors and that kind of thing in Content Explorer. We also have like the content metrics to say like, here's your, here are the most shared pages on Twitter or on Facebook, wherever.
Mm-hmm. Great. Okay, and the last question is about the photos. So idea for the links from the photos is awesome. How to force webmasters to share the link to my photos? As I saw before, they just find them on Google and use without any links.
Well, that's what I mentioned about like the outreach. If you are set up so it's like Creative Commons with attribution, just send them an email and say, look, I see you're using my photo. It's okay, but please like add a link back to my website. Like I allow people to use it, but here are the rules, and we require attribution. We require that link back to my page.
Okay. All right. So we've got one question from Darest Williams just now. What are your thoughts in Google starting to take over the travel section with things to do, airlines and hotels?
That's Google being Google. I imagine that is really impacting a bunch of major players in the travel niche. They will probably have to answer to that with like some antitrust lawsuits at some point. It's happened many times in the past. As soon as they start overstepping their bounds, they start like favoring themselves. The FCC or Congress or someone is going to call them out. There's going to be some lawsuits, and then they're probably going to have to like roll some stuff back, or just they're going to get in trouble. And I don't know. We'll see how that plays out. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not legal. I would imagine it's hurt a lot of travel affiliates, though.
Well,
travel sites.
Yes, a lot, honestly. Yeah. All right. We're out of questions now. So I think we are about to wrap it up. So probably you have some final thoughts for listeners.
Just good luck. I know this is a tough time for everyone in the travel niche. Hopefully what I showed today is useful, finding all the content that's successful already, making some of that, how to make it better. Go ahead and start creating that stuff. Like coronavirus is not going to last forever. Hopefully we're done with this very, very soon with a vaccine or something. But you can prepare now for when the good times come again.
Thank you so much, Patrick, for such an insightful journey. I mean, me myself going to watch that once again, at least maybe twice, because I'm really interested in all this, techniques and maybe instructions and guides on how to improve your SEO positions, especially now. And this is so important for travel affiliates, since they mostly Travelpayouts affiliates, since they mostly work with content and they create articles and lots of texts. So it's definitely a great workshop. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And thank you everyone for being with us today. Thank you for your questions and being active. We'll see you tomorrow at 4 p.m. GMT. And remember to pay attention to your emails. You'll get the link to the live session right into your inbox. So the list of speakers for tomorrow is quite impressive, so let me read it. The day will be started by Kiwi.com, who will share how to use affiliate tools to skyrocket your online business. Then the founder of a wonderful travel blog called Somto6.com will explain how to build a successful travel blog after COVID-19. And the third workshop will be held by Darla Newman. Oh my God, she's an Emmy Award winner, and she will share all she knows about video content creation. So we'll see you tomorrow and have a nice day today. Bye bye.